This is from Democracy Now! Trump's personal army. There's an executive order to create a quick reaction force, and it's raising a lot of alarm. They say, but they start off with some other things that have gone down. A federal judge ruled Trump acted illegally when he sent National Guard troops to Los Angeles, but he's still vowing to send troops to Chicago and other Democrat-led cities. Meanwhile, Trump's emergency order that federalized the police force of Washington, D.C., and sent in National Guard troops and the FBI expired Wednesday. But at least 150 military police will patrol the nation's capital until at least the end of November, which, of course, is hysterical, as if these National Guard did anything in D.C. Over the course of whatever it was, 2 months or less. Anyway, they say this comes as Trump signed a new executive order last month that directs Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, quote, ensure the availability of a standing National Guard quick reaction force that shall be resource trained and available for rapid nationwide deployment. And this is Trump's had a long-standing fetish, hard-on, for having kind of his own police force, his own military, like not overseas, but like sitting there ready to, at his whim. He wanted that in the first term. To continue, this is from a journalist they interviewed. We've long had a norm or an ethos in this country of keeping the military separate from domestic law enforcement. Trump is slowly eating away at that and creating a new norm where it's just sort of accepted that this is just going to be part of our country now. We're going to have troops in the streets. I got it. Because I don't want you to take my point before. Pete Hegseth asking him to oversee this project, to oversee the staffing, the training, the general oversight, and presumably he would be coming up with the rules of engagement for these forces. He defends war criminals. He's a lunatic. He doesn't believe war crimes are real or should be prosecuted. I mean, neither does Trump with any of these. This is a person who wrote in his book that the military should be enlisted in a holy war. Yeah, so these are all lunatics. But the idea that our ruling elite have not already had their own army at the push of a button, anytime the people in this country stand up and fight back, what do you see? You see thousands of jackbooted, all-black riot thugs showing up and attacking people without weapons, meaning the people they're attacking don't have weapons, unarmed people. The idea that they're it can make it worse. Like, you could have troops firing guns more easily, I suppose. But the idea that the ruling elite have not had their own army in this, that's what the fucking police force is. It is the army of the ruling elite.
I'd also just like to point out that he is incorrect, or she, I'm sorry, I don't know who this person is.
It's a male journalist.
Okay. That he's wrong when he says, and I get the point he's trying to make, that the police and the military have been separate, but no. A quick internet search suggests that somewhere between 19 and 25% of U.S. police officers have prior military service. You could also argue that this is relatively new because we've been at war now for, the latest rendition for the past 25 some years, and veterans coming home are pulled into are pulled into working for the police.
Thank you. That's one of my pet peeves.
I know. Because of a similar structure, right? The discipline, the extreme hierarchy, right? The yes sir, no sir, whatever the hell. The training, right? Look at Cop City. The IDF shares this training facility, right?
Yeah,
so the and the 1033 program that gives cops military equipment. So the idea that these are, or have been until now, like until Trump came around, separate entities is actually not accurate. And it's problematic because, again, I'm not saying that Trump hasn't escalated shit and made things worse. I'm very aware of this, but it makes it sound like he just did all of this. And he woke up one day and he was like, military and police will have no distinction. And it's like, but they already didn't, okay? They already didn't.
And even if they did have it, let's say there was no 1033 program, you'd still have militarized police walking the streets. Like, you'd still have the largest prison system in the world. You'd still be grabbing 1 out of every 3 black men in this country at some point and putting them in prison. It's like, even if there were that clear line, the cops are an army.
But like going back to who we are, this is a culture, right? It's a culture of violence. It's a culture of violent control. The police are descended, in terms of their legacy, are descended from slave patrols. This is a very American legacy of extremist, racist, white nationalist violence that permeates both the military and the police. So again, to suggest that they're separate is to kind of feel like there's this distinction that doesn't exist, and it's to not really understand either current or historical aspects of both the police and the military, to my mind.
I think those are all great points, and the fact that Democracy Now! Didn't add that into their interview, I think, is a little bit of the problem with Democracy Now! I think they do some good work, and I think sometimes they miss a little something.
There was an interesting interview with a veteran about ways to approach National Guard or whatever. Like, if you are going to do this, no, I'm not saying everyone should, but if you're going to approach them and talk to them about what they actually feel their role is, like in your city and in this country. So his point was that a lot of veterans are unclear about basically like that oath that they took to defend the U.S. from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to follow orders unless, I can't remember the exact wording, but unless they go against either legal or moral constraints. And a lot of what Trump is doing is in fact illegal, as you've just pointed out, with these judges saying this and that. But of course, Trump doesn't care because he's already been sued 400 times in the past 5 years. So these are interesting inroads for people to speak to national. And again, I'm not saying that this is something that everybody should do, but I thought it was an interesting article because this speaks to that actual political discourse and the idea of, I know that Mike Preisner, for instance, has a podcast called Eyes Left, and he says that he's always open to speak to service members who are military that are currently serving,
to talk them out of it, or thinking of joining.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's really powerful because we should always leave the door open. And I talked about this after Trump was elected. We should always leave the door open for people to change their minds, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we necessarily negotiate with Nazis or whatever, right? There are red lines to which we don't cross. And those are different for everybody based on their experience, based on their backgrounds and their identities and things like that. But we should always leave the door open for people to change their minds. So one tactic can be and should be to try to put out a little gangplank here not a gangplank, that's where you jump off, but a plank of wood where they can cross over from the dark side.
How about a tightrope? They could a tightrope.
Well, that
walker.
Sounds terrifying. I want nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay.
If a little exit ramp from the Death Star to your little.
So it was an exit ramp, but it was a plank over the gap before. Now it's an exit ramp.
I'm just saying. You know what?
I think
workshop the exact
someone else,
structure.
Some other architect should come up with the plans for this because it's getting ugly.
I have the vision. I just don't have the architecture.
It seems like an MC Escher painting.
So somebody else
connecting in on itself
to draw this out. I'm not a visual person.
Some in the chat are offering the word bridge.
That's good. I like bridge.
Bridge
Exit
might
ramp
work.
is kind of a bridge.